Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. So I'm actually going to be looking at the games that I played in a big tournament. So I played in the Cherry Blossom Classic, and that was a big 9-round event. And yeah, well, let's just have a look at the first game. This was an open tournament, and by ratings, I was actually, I think, I was in the top half, but just barely. So that means my first round pairing was actually one of the lower seeds. All of the pairings were done by FIDE rating, so my FIDE rating is about 200 points below my USCF rating. So FIDE, I am underrated. But I think most American players are also. So my opponent in the first round was rated, I think, 1700 FIDE. But he's obviously very underrated. He's actually the number 10 11-year-old in the country in the US, so his USCF rating is 2055, so he's definitely, yeah, pretty solid kid. Alright, so I've decided to play knight f3. I was white this game, and this is something that I usually play. It's more of a positional approach, just if I want to avoid any kind of theoretical debate with either the main line opening, like e4 or d4, or d4. So, okay, we got knight f3, and there's a lot of ways that black can play against this. He went for d5, and okay, so e3. So I'm not even going to put my pawn on d4. This is actually a system that I have played a lot. E3, and then, we play b3, bishop b2, c4, and we just kind of get some unusual kind of position, where I have a fair amount of experience with the system. So knight f6, c4, c6. He's basically playing like a Slav, c6. Knight c3, e6, so this is all perfectly fine what black is doing. A lot of people here actually try to get this bishop developed really early. Bishop f5 is a well-known mistake actually here, because white is usually able to take and go queen b3, so this is a very typical reaction. And it's hard to defend this pawn while also defending this pawn d5. So we're playing a Slav, but white has delayed the move d4 in favor of getting both of the knights out very quickly. So that gives white a few more options if black tries to get his bishop out. But e6 is perfectly fine too. And now that he's no longer threatening to develop his bishop, now I don't mind playing b3, so I'm taking the scoring for my queen, but I just want to develop bishop b2. So this is all normal. Bishop e7, bishop e2, he castled, I played queen c2, knight bd7. And sometimes in these positions, white actually plays rook g1, and this looks like a really bizarre move, but the idea is actually g4, and I have played this in I think at least one slow game, and also in over the board or in blitz games. Yeah, however, I remembered, like I have done analysis on this particular position, but there's a difference if the bishop is on e7 versus on d6. So back in this position, black could have played bishop d6. Bishop d6 is the main line, actually. Most people put the bishop on d6. It's just a little bit more active, and it controls the e5 square. But with the bishop on e7, I think this plan with rook g1 doesn't actually work. At least I remembered from my notes. This plan is not as good. I didn't remember exactly why, but I think I was able to work it out over the board. So e5 is the critical reaction. Black needs to fight in the center to counteract my wing advance in g4, e4. And the whole point is that if we play g5, black is actually fine to just take this, take care. And if the bishop was on d6, white could take twice on d5 here. So, like if you imagine this bishop was on d6, this would be winning for white because you wouldn't be able to take the knight, or takes g7. But with bishop on e7, this actually is playable for black, and white has some compensation, but it's not quite full compensation. So instead, white plays d4. This is what I played, and we just go back to a more positional approach. So I'm just going to get the bishop out, and probably here, and then castle. basically say black is kind of cramped. He still has to solve his bishop. So I would say here is where black makes the first kind of small inaccuracy. So I mean, white is a little bit better, but if black just develops normally, like b6, and then just the bishop on b7, and plays for quick rook c8 and c5, then black should be, that's the best chance black has to equalize the position. Because white is also, a little bit behind in development. I haven't castled yet. I haven't moved my bishop yet. So if black is able to quickly get a rook to the c file, play c5, that is where his chances are. Instead, he went for a much slower play. He played rook e8, so I was very happy to see this. And I figured he wants to play knight f8, but it's just a slow plan. The knight is not very good on f8. It's much better on d7, where it helps to prepare c5. And, it's not really necessary to put the knight here or go here. And it just kind of wastes time. So now bishop d3, knight f8, now I castle. Now he goes for b6, but now, okay, it's much slower. So you're nowhere near as fast getting this all in. And I'm ready to open up the position with e4. So now white is, definitely at least slightly better. Maybe it's a little bit more than that, but okay. Definitely I'm pretty happy with the position I have out to be opening. So, yeah, he can't allow me to play e5. That's just going to be a big space advantage, and I'll be able to start a kingside attack. So it takes on e4. Knight e4, bishop b7. And, alright, I play rook a1, so for now he still cannot play c5. This would be the one equalizing move that black could play, but here it's just bad because I take. And you can't really recapture because of this typical tactical idea. I could take on f6, take on h7, and black is just going to lose the queen. So something like this is completely winning for white. And so instead of that, he played knight takes e4, bishop e4, queen c7. And I actually had envisioned this position back when I played e4. I figured we would get something like this, and I already knew the move I would play here. So this is a very typical positional move that they would say every Russian schoolboy would know what to play here. So this is very thematic in these kind of structures. If you want to try and see what the move is, we need to stop black from playing c5. And there's really only one way to do that. And the move is c5. So this might look anti-positional because we give away the d5 square. But this knight is miles away from that. So his last move, his idea to put the knight on f8, the knight is much better if it can go to f6. It also defends h7, that can go to d5. And yeah, now this bishop is not getting into the game. So there's no more c5. And it also fixes the pawn on c6 as a weakness. So now white's definitely, clearly better. And he played what looked like a reasonable reaction. So he took on c5 and played bishop a6. I thought he might go for queen a5, which, okay, well, you're not really threatening to take on a2 because this will trap the queen. But you are threatening to take this, and I don't really want to play like rook c1. It's kind of weird to put the rook on d1 then put it on c1. So probably instead I would have gotten a5. And I thought if we get some trade like this, trade queens, and I'll win my pawn back on c6. Something like this looked very good for white. I just have a 2-on-1 on the queen side. I have very active rooks. The other rook is going to go to c1, so this just looks good for white. I wasn't really worried about that. But instead he plays bishop a6. And actually, he has, he had an idea, so I guessed what his idea was. He actually wants to get rid of this problem piece. So I have to save my rook f1. He plays f5. This is his idea. I have to retreat the bishop, and then he can trade him off. So it's a very extreme way to play because obviously you're really weakening your position here. Not only weaken e6, you also weaken the 7th rank. May not seem important, but the pawn on f7 shields the 7th rank. If I ever get my rooks down here, then you want to have as many pawns as you can to potentially shield that. It also weakens, e5, e6, all of these squares become much weaker. This diagonal. So, f5 wasn't really a move I was worried about. But okay, I mean, now we have to trade off this bishop, so white's advantage has to transform. So I play bishop e5, he goes queen c8, I play bishop d3. So I'm really no longer playing against this bishop because we're just going to trade it off. Now I'm going to play more on these weaknesses that white has created. So c6 is still weak, e6 is weak, and all of my pieces are just kind of perfectly active. So if he took on d3, I take with a rook. Just getting ready to double. And then he goes for a very logical play, knight d7, so he's getting the knight back to f6 and to d5. And white is still much better here. It's not like a decisive advantage, I don't think, but positionally this is just very good for white. Because black just has all these weaknesses. White really has no weaknesses in this position, so I can kind of play this without any risk. So I play bishop d6, and he goes knight f6. And yeah, here I know he wants to put the knight either on d5 or on e4. If he goes to d5, I don't want to have like my bishop, or I would like to still have a piece on d6, but if he goes knight d5 next turn, then he might want to take on d6, and if I take with a pawn, it might be a little bit hard to hold on to that pawn. And if he goes knight d5 and we just trade on e7, then it's going to take me a while to get something to the d6 square. I would like to get a knight there. e5 is also a great square for the knight. But I really actually wanted my rook on d6, because that will attack this e6 pawn and c6. So I figured, okay, if we get my rook to d6, that'll be pretty good. So I took knight e7 here. Rook takes e7, rook d6. So really nothing too special has happened here. So none of these moves were terribly difficult to make so far. And I think the first critical moment happens here after he plays knight e4. So yeah, feel free to think about this position and see what you would play. I'm actually not sure I played the best move. There's a lot of good moves here for white. And, well, okay, we could obviously just retreat the rook, and white would still be better. But okay, I mean, it's good to notice that black maybe isn't really threatening to take this rook, because positionally that will be a very good exchange sacrifice. The pawn goes to d6, and my knight goes to e5, and this looks, it looks very dangerous. Just to give you kind of an example, knight e5 is probably a better move than what I played, but I also sacrificed the exchange. I played rook takes e4, which actually seems like it should be better, because you get a pawn for it also, but I underestimated how much counterplay he gets on the open f file. But yeah, after knight e5, this actually is very difficult, because if you take my rook, takes, your rook only has one safe square on b7. If you go here, then you get forked. Okay, but I mean, this looks very bad. I mean, I can take on c6. Yeah, I mean, I can play queen c4, just threatening d7, and then I'm taking on e6. White has an overwhelming amount of compensation here. Maybe not winning yet, but like very soon, it looks like black's position is close to falling apart. Rook takes e4 is a little bit less precise, because now after takes, queen takes, he plays the best move here, which I realized he has it when we got to this position. My threat is not really so much to go after the c6 pawn, but I'm going to just try and checkmate him, like knight g5, and then, if I crash through on e6 after that, it could just be over in a few moves. So he plays queen f8, which is kind of like the only move to hold the position. And yeah, here I went for a really long think. So I play this exchange sac pretty intuitively. So like back here, I spent 2 minutes on rook takes e4. So okay, this is a 2-hour time threshold, so I spent 2 minutes. It's really not a lot. And I have been kind of thinking I would do this from a while back, so yeah, I didn't see there was any problem with it. Yeah, but then after queen f8, I actually realized maybe it's not so simple. So he wants to play queen f5. I definitely don't want to allow a queen trade. But otherwise I have to contain this queen, because, if she's able to go and mess around over here, queen c2, queen b1, that could get out of hand. So I thought for a long time here. I actually thought for over half an hour. Yeah, I burned a lot of my time trying to think what's the best move. And it was a little bit silly, really, because white has a lot of good moves here. Like, you can make almost any reasonable move here, and it's going to be good. Like, I wanted to play knight d4. This is a good move. Just stops queen f5. I was a little bit worried about queen f6. This plan to just get all the rooks over to the f file. But even if you just play, like, f3, rook f8, and even h3, like, I consider this. I mean, this is still very good compensation for white. White's definitely much better. Because there's no way to break through over here. I control the center very nicely with these pieces. I'm going to take c6 whenever I want, pretty much. e6 is weak, so this is a very good position for white. And yeah, I mean, instead of that, I played h3. h3 is actually, it's also a perfectly good move. Yeah, it was just kind of a little bit silly to spend half an hour on it. I was thinking about a lot of stuff. Like, obviously, I don't want to take here because he'll just go here. And even though I get 2 pawns right now for the exchange, he's going to activate his rooks, which I don't want. I don't want this, and he plays queen f5, or knight e5, he plays queen e5. I spent a little bit of time trying to think if I am happy with this endgame. I'm not sure f4, but I didn't like that he plays g5. And he's just going to start opening up some files. And, I mean, white's probably still better here, but if those rooks get active, then he can use a g file. My f4 pawn is weak. I wasn't so sure about this. So instead I played h3, prophylactic move. And my idea was after queen f5, which he played, I'm going to take on c6. So this is what happened. Now he can play queen b1 check, but it's not mate. So I can play king h2, and my king is actually very safe on h2. And I just figured I'm going to let my knight sit on f3. It shields the f file. You know, I can decide later if I want to move it somewhere. And now I have a very strong passed pawn, so I want to really invest in this and try and get that as far as I can. So there's rook f8. And yeah, here I had a bit of a think too. I thought for actually 13 minutes here. Now black has a pretty natural plan, which is rook back to e8 and rook to c8. I'm gonna start going after this. I can't play b4 very easily because then queen b1 check is a problem. Right? But on the last move, you know, these things weren't really doing anything. Queen b1, I can just go here, and then the rook is hanging. This is hanging. This would not really be effective for black. But no, I mean, yeah, maybe he wants to go invade with his queen. Maybe he wants to play like e5 and e4 and start getting some counterplay with his active major pieces there. So I just played kind of a consolidating move. I played rook d1. So retreating moves, yeah, they can be kind of hard to make, and you kind of want to go forward here. But I already have 2 pawns for the exchange, so I can just kind of say, you know, my position is fine. I did consider rook d2, but I didn't actually like... I calculated this for a while, so I spent 13 minutes. This was mostly what I was trying to figure out. After rook e8, I wanted to play queen d6 here, and see if I can sacrifice my queen. I somehow wasn't able to make this work, although this is completely winning for white. I did miss one little detail, so after c6, I did see that if he just plays like some random move, like here, that I can force this king and pawn endgame. And I saw I could do this, and this is a winning endgame, because I have just this 2-on-1 on the queen side. So I make the outside pass pawn, and then this king will go mop everybody else up here. But yeah, actually I wasn't so sure about like this. He plays check, and he plays queen c1. And I can't play this, obviously, because he just takes with check. And he's not actually threatening to take because of this fork. But I didn't see like a way to make this work. I mean, if I throw this check in, I think he can just go here. And now he is actually threatening to take, and I can't really do this because my rook is hanging. I can't do this because queen f4 check is there. But okay, I missed another retreating move here, rook d4. This is very strong. This just wins immediately, basically. So I'm going to go here, and then c7, and white just promotes. Really nothing to it. You can't take because it's just here. So yeah, that was a little bit silly to not see that. But rook d1 is also fine. And my idea behind this is after he plays rook e8, I can play b4. So this is my point, and now there's no queen b1 check. The rook on d2, you could play queen b1 here. And this is still good for white, yeah. So queen f4. But I'm not winning yet. I mean, the hardest thing to do is to go from like a much better position to actually winning it, and then once you have a winning position to actually like convert that to a full point. You know, so definitely the game is nowhere near over. There's still a lot of fight left. And he plays queen f4. I mean, he wants to put some pressure on me, so he's attacking b4. And he also has, you know, some pretty nefarious intentions, e5, e4. And then I can get into trouble if he breaks into f2. So yeah, I decided, yeah, I mean, I could play b5, but yeah, then e5, this kind of scared me. I thought this wasn't so clear. Because if I can't stop e4 next move, I mean, even if I go here and we trade queens, like I was not sure about this endgame at all. It may still be good for me, but yeah, these pawns could be overextended. Like if I go here, I walk into a pin. You know, I didn't feel like trying to make that work. It just felt a little bit too loose. So instead, I just centralized rook d4. And it allows queen c1, and he plays queen b2, and actually he's gonna win something over here. But I'm going for activity, so rook g4. Basically, I don't even care about the f2 pawn. Like this construction right here, my king is perfectly safe on h2, and the queen stops any kind of exchange sacrifices on f3. Rook on g4 is perfect. It defends my king, and it also is an attacking piece. And I don't really care about the a2 pawn or the f2 pawn. Really, my plan here is just to go queen d7 and start pushing the c pawn. So that's basically what happens. So plays queen takes f2, queen d7. Now I'm threatening checkmate. You can't play rook f7 because this hangs. So queen b2 is actually the only move. If you play g6, then I play knight g5, and you have no good way to defend h7. So queen b2. And now I'm playing knight d4. So cutting the queen off and forcing him to make another weakening move. So you remember back when I said f5 weakens the 7th rank, well, yeah, 15 moves ago it didn't seem like a big problem, but this is like a very typical thing that can happen. When you move pawns, you know, around your king that are supposed to be shielding things like the 7th rank, you know, and you have to move another one now, g6. So now it gets even more exposed. If I ever get this rook over here, you know, then it's going to be game over pretty much. And I could also play rook h4, but yeah, then I mean, you will play h5. So like this looks kind of ridiculous, but I have no way to break through here. And this is actually something you can still play. I think I considered this. I saw I have this rook f4 idea, but I somehow didn't. Yeah, I didn't go for it. I thought, let's just leave my rook here, and I'm going to play for c6 and c7. So I play c6. And this is actually, I think this is, yeah, probably the most serious mistake that I make in the game. Like, I give black one chance to get back to a playable position, which he doesn't actually take. So he played pretty quickly queen d2, like actually almost without thinking. And after this, now white is basically winning, because I got my pawn to c7, and black is basically paralyzed. So we'll see what happens there. But actually, what he should do is he should take on a2. And the point is he's going to get his queen back to d5 and chase my queen out of this dominant place on d7. So this actually wouldn't be so clear, because now if I play c7, queen d5, this is actually how black can even start to say he's better. I mean, definitely if I trade queens, my advantage is completely gone. So yeah, here, I mean, I don't know, maybe I have to start looking for moves like rook f4 to try and simplify the position somehow. But yeah, instead he plays queen d2. After c7, I only have one pawn for the exchange, but this pawn is a total monster. And you can never really move either of your rooks, because you have to guard the c8 square. So really all you have is your active queen, but by herself she can't do much. So he plays queen e3, and I just go back knight f3, so I stay completely in control. There's no rook takes f3 because I take. Plays rook c8. And now I play rook h4. h5 is forced. And now rook c4. So this keeps black completely paralyzed. And his rook cannot move because I promote. This rook can only go back and forth into f8 and e8. And really all you have is this queen, but she can't even do anything because there's no checks. All these squares are covered. I mean, literally, like, black has no moves here. It's kind of an incredible position. And if you do nothing, like, I have, a simple plan to just play, like, I can just advance these guys, and, position's gonna fall apart. I can rook c6, I can attack this, I mean, yeah, this is just not good. And maybe h4 and h5 at some moment. I mean, yeah, position is falling apart. So you kind of got desperate here. You played rook takes f3. I mean, the position is lost anyway, but he's trying for some perpetual. And actually, it's kind of funny. He offered a draw here too, which I thought was a little bit funny. Okay, I mean, I take on c8. This doesn't really work for him. I should mention, I was in time pressure here. Well, I'm not really time pressure, but I had, like, when he played rook takes f3, I had 4 minutes on my clock. Which, okay, I mean, it's enough time to figure out, like, it's enough time for me to calculate what happens after rook takes f3. But yeah, definitely my time management was not ideal. Like, especially thinking for half an hour on that one. That was a little bit silly. But okay. I mean, now white is winning. So queen takes c8, king h7. And I was able to find one of the only ways to actually win here. You could actually consider queen h8 check, but this is not so clear. And you make a new queen, but then you're kind of back in the same problem. The king will just go up, and it's not really necessary to sacrifice the queen, I thought. Okay, but instead this is actually very simple. Queen d7 check, king h6. And we don't take the rook, because then he has this perpetual, queen f2, queen f1. So we take here. And I have no way to escape the checks. But instead I can play queen d4, and there's just nothing left. If you trade queens, this is a very easily winning endgame, because my rook makes it laterally to the side of the pawn. So my rook is not going to be stuck behind the pawn here. I'm going to be here. And your rook has to stay here to guard promotion. And I just push these pawns, and this is a very easy win. My king can stop this e-pawn without much difficulty. So he tried the only other thing he can, rook takes h3, but there's not enough checks. Queen e2 check, there's no other checks. Now I go here. It's very easy to calculate, because he only has one check, queen e1. Queen f2, and now he resigned here, but one more check like this, I'll play queen f4, and then we trade the queens. So, okay. Yeah, I would say a fairly smooth win. There was that one moment where, yeah, I gave him a chance. I was back here when I played c6 a little bit too early. Instead, yeah, I should play... Yeah, instead I should go back for this idea probably. Rook h4 and then rook f4. And something like this will just be, still winning for white. Probably winning. Because now, my king will be safe. Rook f2, but I'll get my queen back to the center somehow. Just a position like this. And your king is very weak. I'm threatening queen g5 check, threatening to promote my pawn. And my queen defends g2. You have no threats against my king. So, yeah, this would probably be still winning for white. So, okay. Yeah, the next video we'll see my round 2 game. And until then, see you next time.